Robin Hood, a household name known around the world, a story retold hundreds of times through different types of media and in different variations. Robin and his band of merry men have a long history. But why is this? Beginning in the Middle Ages, during the time of King John, stories of a man who stole from the rich and gave to the poor started to circulate. These stories evolved and morphed over time, becoming what we know them as today. While many would write Robin off as a fictional character created by repressed individuals, is it possible that he could have been real? Or are the stories just that? Stories told around fires and as tales to put children off the bed.
Some early accounts of Robin Hood stem from the early medieval literature, descending of Old English myths and told by the Anglo-Saxons and by French Normans around 1066. By the 14th and 15th century, these fragments have been pieced together to form ballads that would surface during summer festivals. Among these stories were believed to showcase some of the more popular characters of the myth, such as Robin Hood, Little John, and Company. However, Friar Tuck and Maid Marian were questionable cases. Because of the two different lingual groups telling the story of Robin Hood, discrepancies began to evolve. Characters like Friar Tuck and Maid Marian were never reported in the early ballads and are believed to be more of the French contribution to the story. There are reports of friars in some of the early plays, but none of them were named Tuck. This is where the stories start to lose some of their credibility and why it is believed to be a myth. Adding a subtracting of certain characters as well as this uncertainty of where Robin actually came from challenges the potential fact behind the story. Adding to this, Robin Hood also followed plot lines of other famous stories found in Arthurian tradition. One such legend centers around Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, which shows similar behaviors to Robin Hood with small differences. Could this story of Robin Hood actually be based off the story of Gawain? Another instance following medieval plotlines is the Ballad of Robin Hood and the Disguised King. It also has similarities to other ballads told at the time with different characters. Even Robin Hood's supposed death is eerily similar to Arthurian tradition in older English collections like in Beowulf.
With multiple different versions and records, it's easy to think that Robin Hood is a fictional character. But is there anything that could point to him being real? Legal records dating back to the 13th century have names like Rogue Hod, Robin Hood, and other variations that had become common names for criminals. But was this a moniker given by criminals when they were arrested because of the story? Was this name given because there was a real Robin Hood and the criminals wanted him to take the credit for their deeds? Or was this even the same man committing crimes, the differences chalked up to the variance in spelling and education at the time? Is it possible to piece the odd record or account together to form a sort of timeline? Perhaps. You see, the story goes that Robin Hood was active during the time of the coup of John against King Richard, which would have taken place around 1193 and 1194. Records state that there was at least one fugitive by the name of Robert Hodd in July of 1225 in York, an area that would make sense to frequent given its stature and location. A grave in Kirklees is commonly known as Robin Hood's grave, which dates to 1247. This happens to correspond with the story of his death, bleeding out by the betrayal of the prioress of Kirklees Priory. Whatever the legitimacy of these claims may be, they still create a documented path that a real fugitive named Robin Hood could have taken. Robin's grave also poses an interesting question. What about the graves or any other documentation about his friends? Robin's best friend, a man ironically named Little John since he was extremely tall, may have been real as well. A grave under a yew tree in Derbyshire is marked, "Here lies buried Little John, the friend and lieutenant of Robin Hood." Although there is no date listed on the tombstone, a Captain James Shuttleworth exhumed the grave in 1784 and found the bones of a 7-foot tall man. Coincidence? Perhaps.
In order to make our own decision, we wanted to hear people's opinion aside from the fact that we were about to find.
What do you know about Robin Hood?
Not very much. I share his name, obviously. And he had a group of merry men, and they stole from the rich and gave to the poor. And they were based in Nottingham Forest. And I think that's about it.
Great. Do you think he was a real person or a myth?
I think it was based on a real person.
And why do you think he was a real person?
I don't know. I think I heard that somewhere. Yes, I think I heard it, so I don't know.
I know that Robin Hood steals from the rich and gives to the poor.
That's all?
Pretty much. I've seen a couple movies and stuff about him, but he seems pretty honorable.
And do you think he was a real person, or a myth, or a mix of both?
Well, I think it's a great story, but I think it is also a story that accounts for some people's lives. Some may be heroes, some people that might just want to do good in the world.
Why? Why do you think that?
I think because a lot of people have an interest in fulfilling their life with something, and a lot of people see injustice in the world with different wage gaps, and so they might want to do something about it. So I think this story is a story, but it is based on actual life, since some people might have actually done some action around wage gaps.
Okay, and do you have any equivalent of this story in your country?
Well, in the U.S., we have Robin Hood almost everywhere, as wealth is a big thing. People own big houses, cars, and so you always hear about the story. It's famous all over the U.S. for that particular reason.
Hello. Do you know Robin Hood?
Yes. I know about Robin Hood. I don't know Robin Hood personally.
What do you know about Robin Hood?
Robin Hood was an outlaw who lived in Sherwood Forest with his band of merry men, and he robbed from the rich to give to the poor.
Yeah. And do you think he was a real person or it was just a myth?
I think he was probably an amalgamation of a number of different people, but whether or not any of them had a band of merry men and lived in a forest and stole from the rich to give to the poor, I don't know. So I think he's probably a myth.
Okay. And do you know why he is still popular today?
I think people like the idea of redistributing wealth because they think the rich people probably don't deserve all that money because they haven't worked for it, and the people who do work for it deserve a little bit more.
Hello, Isabella. You're from Italy. Do you know Robin Hood?
Yes, of course. I know that he took from the rich and then he gave to the poor.
Do you think he was a real person or do you think it was just a myth?
I don't know, maybe he didn't really exist, but there were people like him that took from the rich and then gave this to the poor.
Do you know Robin Hood in your country, in Italy?
Yes, of course. Children used to watch the cartoon and the movies, even at school.
It's hard to say for sure whether or not Robin Hood was a real person or if he is purely fictional. The more common assumption is that he is just the product of myths and legends. However, based on what little evidence that has been found, is it too much to say that he could have been real, but his story became warped by time and retelling? One can never be quite sure.